morning and happy new year to you all. My name's Roy Thompson. I head up MHA Carpenter Financial Advisors, and this is the second in our series of At the Coalface. So you'll recall that I started this series because if we read the news or listen to the news, information that comes through is particularly negative just at the moment, or it feels negative. And yet actually investment markets haven't necessarily moved in a negative way. In fact, since the beginning of the pandemic, there's been a gradual rise throughout the year. So this little series is just aimed at giving you some regular information about what's happening in the market, what news flow is affecting how markets perform. Over the Christmas break, I had a bit of feedback from my wife. She said that I've got too many chins. So what I've done is simply raised up my screen and hopefully I'm looking at a little bit more chiseled. But today I've got with me Tom Ledger. So Tom is an investment manager from LGT Vestra. You'll recall that LGT Vestra are an investment management firm who we work closely with. I just wanted to talk with Tom about some critical bits of news that have happened in the last couple of weeks. I guess the main thing that we would think of is we finally got approval through the House of Commons for the Brexit deal that was negotiated. So Tom, how does that play out on in markets here in the UK, Europe, and I guess around the world?
So I think the main news is we got a deal. So that's kind of the best news that we can take. We didn't fall off the cliff edge, which a lot of people were kind of professing about and worried about, and going to those WTO rules, which it wouldn't be the best outcome for anybody. Since then, we are early days in terms of what the deal will mean. There are a few things which still remain unclear. However, trade is happening between the two countries. You aren't seeing mile-long tailbacks coming in and out of the country, and they are starting to clear that backlog which happened before the deal was announced. And generally, it will mean England and the UK in general is now investable from institutional investors. So you can see today the market's picked up, and a lot of that will be because more institutional money is flowing back into the UK stock market. And things are looking better now that uncertainty of what trade deal we may or may not have has gone away.
Okay, so that's good. So the institutional money coming in, is that money that would have been on the sidelines for a period of time now, sort of waiting to find out what's happened with the deal, and now we've got a bit of certainty, or they know where they stand, they're ready to put money into the UK? Is that because they feel the UK is still a good place to invest money?
That's absolutely spot on. Markets generally hate uncertainty, so they just stayed clear over the past, possibly 4 years, you could argue. Now we have that deal, and they know the kind of trading arrangement that we are on. You've seen money flow back in, and actually the UK still now is looking quite undervalued relative to its European and especially American peers. That's therefore, if you take the currency into account as well, which has depressed quite a lot since the referendum result. It really is looking good value. If you kind of cast your eye over to the US tech valuations, they are two very different valuations, and for the smart investor, there is money to be made there as those valuations kind of converge.
And in Europe, how would if we think about it from Europe's point of view, the fact that we've struck a deal, is that a positive in terms of European investment markets?
Yeah, absolutely. So the UK is a big buyer of certain European assets, and particularly maybe the German car market is one which would have applauded the deal. They sell a lot of cars over to the UK, and other service industries come from the UK, and it really is a two-way street there. So the likes of Germany and financial France will really have kind of applauded this deal, and hopefully, going forward, we'll see both Europe and the UK grow in tandem, especially as we kind of get out of the pandemic and the vaccine news and vaccines are rolled out throughout the bloc.
And any particular opportunities here in the UK that the deal provides? So, I guess, there'll be people here who are listening and who voted to leave, some voted to remain. We're now in a position where we have we have left. I guess if I think about that, there must be some opportunities within that. Any particular areas that you think that UK will benefit from moving forward?
I mean, it is early days, so I think opportunities will arise when we have more clarity on the other trade deals we'll get throughout nations outside of Europe. Probably is what I would say. I think the deal with Europe is generally fair, but there isn't really a big winner or loser in any particular place. However, when we strike a trade deal with the US, for example, or Australia, or indeed Japan, or any other nation, that's when we will probably see these real opportunities present themselves, and where we can actually start moving away from maybe the tighter EU regulations, and make ourselves a country and stand on their own 2 feet, for example.
So investors really should be looking out for those future deals that we might strike with other key nations, is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we still have quite a big, we're definitely sit on the world stage in terms of science and innovation. You've seen that from the vaccine. Actually, it's a good kind of example of where we sit in the world as a global player and what we are good at. Other industries, for example, engineering, we're still very, very up there, especially from the kind of military and defense stage. Again, those sorts of areas are potentially where we can see good opportunities should the deals with other nations start to come through, and we'll have to obviously digest those as they come through. But obviously, previously, we've kind of been constrained by European regulations in those industries, which they've been kind of written to suit the whole of Europe rather than any one nation. But hopefully, as we progress, we'll see these opportunities arise.
It's good. And so Brexit, big news, markets essentially reacting to that in a positive manner because of the stability or the sort of clarity that provides. What about, I guess, we've got things like the runoff election in Georgia coming up. So how important is that and to markets in the US, for example, or around the world?
Yes, well, it's very important in the sense that the US market still kind of dominates global investment markets throughout, whether that be Asia or Europe or elsewhere. Obviously, it's very close. It's only 2 seats in the Senate, which will be voted on tomorrow. It could go either way. The polling is very, very thin. I don't think either result is going to be necessarily bad for investments. One might be slightly marginally better than the other, and that would be a Republican Senate. And that's just because it will maintain the status quo for what we've had for the past 4 years, and that being a kind of quite divided House. Things won't change too dramatically. There won't be any new regulations or constraints on the economy, and it pretty much will just tick over as it has been doing kind of over the past 4 years. I think if you get a Democratic House, so if they win these next 2 votes, what you'll see then is potentially more regulations, so particularly on the tech or the pharma industries. However, you probably also will see more stimulus. So we've recently seen another stimulus injection over the Christmas period. What you'll see is probably more of that because they'll have much more kind of power to get that through, which again will be supportive for governments, particularly if it goes down the lines of money going in people's pockets. That's generally good for an economy. So we'll see how it goes. I don't think anyone in particular is very negative. Just one might be slightly marginally better.
That's brilliant. Tom, I really appreciate your time and thank you very much for sharing your views. And as I say at the beginning, Happy New Year to you all. Thank you.